I know. We have elections in July. Let me check. Okay, 7 o'clock. Let's call this meeting to order, please. Regular Planning Commission meeting of January 4th. Roll call, please.
Heatley.
Present.
Hill.
Here.
Phillips.
Here.
Marsh. Hubbard. Here. Hardy.
Here.
Roberts. Wise.
Present.
Walski.
Here. Okay, we have a quorum. Moving on to action.
Oh, I'm sorry, and Isabel.
Oh, yeah, sorry, student rep. Sorry, Isabel.
I apologize.
Okay, so moving on, action on the minutes from the regular meeting of December 6th. We have a motion. Move Hill, your support.
I'm sorry, who was the?
Move Hill, do we have a support? Support wise, so any changes to the agenda, or sorry, the meeting minutes, corrections, additions? None, all in favor of the minutes as posted, say aye. Opposed? None, okay, minutes are approved. Next up, approval of the agenda. Can we have someone move the agenda?
Nope, slow down, just slow down.
Sorry. Sure. Okay, he moved it. Are we ready for a second? Or a second, Wise? Do we have any changes, amendments?
Yeah, I'd like to propose that we switch items 8 and 9. So we move up the amendment to the condominium documents for Grandview condominium above old business.
Okay, let's see. So move the new business in front of the old business, since we do have the petitioner here. I see her. So, okay. So wait, I'm sorry. Is that okay with?
Yeah.
And support, Dustin, is that okay with the amendment? That's okay. So with that, we will amend the agenda to move item 9, which is new business, in front of item 8, which is old business. Okay, so all in favor of the amended agenda, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, the agenda is amended. Moving on, public hearings. We have none scheduled for tonight. Pre-rain citizen participation. We have no pre-rain citizen participation. And cruising right along to reports of officers. I have nothing to report today, so we'll hop on to any planning commissioners. If anybody wants to share anything. Oh, yes, did you have?
Nothing's happened at the zoning board of appeals.
Oh, yeah, that's
for a while.
Thank you.
No,
Okay.
no cases.
No cases? All right. So you really regret to get put on that committee, right? All right, good. It's not a real time stuff. And anything from council law?
No, we had a pretty, obviously with the holidays,
Yes.
so we had a really light meeting, last meeting, and everything that's relevant is in Michelle's report.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for council? Seeing none. All right, so we could go again to committee reports. So we
Yes.
have some notes in here.
Yeah, so the Park and Rec Commission would like Planning Commission to select 2 representatives who would attend the February 15th Park and Rec Commission meeting. Parks and Rec is going to be discussing the new play structure in Mill Creek Park North. Karen Roberts and Kyle Marsh couldn't attend today. They are joining as members of the public, not as PC members, and both have indicated in email to me that they would like to be considered for those 2 spaces. Bless you. So,
Right on cue. I mean, that's why she's not here, right?
so unless there's anyone else that would like to participate.
I would like to also.
Sure.
Can we have 3?
Yeah, I
They asked for 2, so
Yeah, well, we can.
we can say 3.
yeah, we can offer 3, I think, if they're not totally objective. So, but if not, so then, Mr. Phillips, Karen, Karen was Kyle.
Karen, Kyle,
Yeah,
Tom.
All right, well, I don't think we need a motion on that, so that's good. So, we'll
Yeah,
clear
you
up
don't need
that.
to have a motion for it because they just want me to send somebody.
Okay, perfect.
Okay.
So right on, back to you, Michelle, with community development report.
Okay, so let's see, what have I got for? Excuse me, you've got my report in front of you. There's no need for me to go through them piece by piece by piece. If you've got any questions on anything in my report, I'm happy to answer any questions. We have reposted for the assistant planner position. We only got two applications the first time around. The unfortunate thing is that they don't have a lot of experience. In fact, they have no experience. So I can't be I don't have the time to be a
Yes.
teaching planning department at this particular moment in time. So, so we're hoping that we tweak the job description, refocused it in ways to make it a little more enticing. So we're hopeful that we get
more interest from
more
that.
interest. Yes.
How are they advertising the position?
We are advertising it, all of the regular,
The regular
yeah,
standard channels.
MML, MAP, MT, did we do it? No, MTA. MTA, Monster, Indeed.
Okay, so
all those. different
Everything we can
things,
think
yeah.
of, basically.
So. And I can't remember, you'll have to forgive me, the short-term memory is going. Kyle and Karen are not here tonight. They are participating as members of the public, not as planning commissioners. So they'll only be able to talk during not arranged citizens.
Okay. Okay, and for Kyle and Karen, I mean, I hope if you do have comments, you can also send them in writing, of course, to Michelle. I mean, we can, but we can't really interact with you guys.
Well, you can, as members of the public, at any given time, provided you as the chairs are okay opening it up, but they can talk. It's just they're a member of the public tonight.
Right.
They're not a planning commissioner tonight,
Right, okay,
because the Open Meetings Act is now.
yeah, we'll allow that.
Yeah.
Okay,
And they won't obviously vote.
oh, correct.
That's it. I don't know.
All right. Any questions for Michelle? All right, so moving right along, so citizens wishing to address the commission. So at this time, do we have any citizens that would like to address the commission, either in person or online? I see Karen waving her hand, but I think we also have a member here in public, so, okay, so I guess Karen, if you'd like to go first, we'll go to the online, I guess, and then we'll go to the public, if that's okay.
Okay, since I'm not going to participate in the discussion, this is just about the pedestrian easements in the amendment, the addendum to the Grandview Commons, letter, I guess, or documents. I mean, what I'm understanding is that there was 4 different kinds of easements, and the only one that there was no easement document for is the pedestrian. And what I guess my question is, and I think requesting that, or making that a requirement is a good idea. This was before my time somewhat. Was there any requirement that they actually build pedestrian walkways, or is it just, and that was my question. I don't know how, as a public, I can interact, or do you just go, thank you for your question? I don't know. But,
Yeah, I mean, well, yes.
but anyway, that was my question, and that was my concern, that they don't, there was originally, I think, an intention that the public could cut through there and get to the river. And I'm not sure that has been.
Okay. Yep, correct. Why don't we actually, can we table that, or I mean, that question? So yes, thank you for that question. And when we have our business relating to that, I'll ask Michelle to address that question. Thank you. Is there anything? Okay, I guess, anybody else online? I don't think I see any other hands raised. No. Okay, so with that, member of the public, if you'd like to step forward and address.
Should I step forward to that, or should I? just
Yes,
stand
no,
up?
please step forward to the podium.
Tell me how this works.
Yeah, no, it's fine. And give your name and address.
Yeah, sure.
Yep, Thank you.
So my name is Mike Penn. I live on Broad Street, 3389 Broad Street here in town. Wear a couple different hats in Dexter. So I'm the high school baseball coach, a realtor in town, as well as a member of the DDA. And so want to come before you all today and say, thank you for your work on the updating of the zoning, the ordinances and that type of stuff. It's incredibly critical. As a realtor who sells a lot of houses in town, does a lot of work in town. I wanted to kind of, put a face with the name. You guys may have seen a couple of my signs around town and everything. So there's obviously a lot of realtors that are active in town, but from my perspective, as I've kind of watched the past, year, 2 years, I've lived on Broad Street since 2009. So I've kind of watched the, Broad Street kind of had this like redevelopment, right? And so as I'm looking and kind of considering the things and watching very, very closely what you all are considering in terms of like, density and lot sizes and all that type of stuff. I just wanted to kind of encourage you guys to keep heading in that direction. I think it's vitally important. I think like from a real estate perspective, these guys watched pricing downtown explode. And so, and it's priced out for me, seeing a lot of clients that want to come into town and want to be downtown. It's tough, right? We have tremendous projects going on, which is really fun to see, but I think allowing some of the new things to occur, like, changing some lot size requirements, adding the ADU stuff is going to be critical. So thank you so much for your work on that. But I also want to kind of like, I guess, lastly, make myself available. So as a professional resource in the community, if there's anything I can do to engage with y'all in terms of discussing future, concerns that you might have, what you're hearing on the street. It's great for looking at from a technical perspective, but if you want to know what people are looking at from, a tax perspective, a house payment perspective, a rent perspective, that kind of stuff, happy to engage there. And I assume there's gonna be no questions, but if there's ever a point where I can come back and, provide any insight from a real estate perspective to the commission, happy to do so.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Yep. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm not seeing anyone else here from the public, except who has business. So I will assume we can move on from citizens wishing to address to item 9, which we moved before item 8, which is a new business, which is Allison's business. So at that, I don't know if Michelle, you want to give us a brief intro
Yeah.
or?
I can give you a real quick brief
Yep.
intro. So this is the Fifth Amendment to the Master Deed and the fifth replat of the condominium subdivision plan, also known as the Exhibit B drawing for Grandview Commons. Excuse me. You may recall, and for those who weren't on the board when Grandview was approved as a PUD, it was always planned to be a 3-phase development. This third phase is the developer is ready to start constructing, and in order to do that, he has to amend the master deed and bylaws because the condominium needs to be able to expand legally, and this is the process. Excuse me. After it takes the same sort of process that your final site plan does, basically, only it's condo docs. As long as the proposed expansion is the same as the approved final site plan, there really isn't any problem. And as you can see from the review, there isn't really any problem. It has the same, excuse me, it's consistent with the approved final site plan. You've got the whole application in your packet, and it includes the amendment in writing. It includes the replat as in the Exhibit B drawing, and then there's also OHM's review. Excuse me. Generally speaking, everything is consistent with the approved final site plan, the expansion language in the original master deed, and the applicable provisions of the Michigan Condominium Act. The only things that we offer as things that really need to be corrected or addressed is that the sheets 3, 4, and 5, which identify the sanitary sewer, water main, and storm sewer and pedestrian pathway easements. They're all identified as proposed. The sanitary sewer, the water main, and the storm sewer, because those are all underground and those have already been put in, those easements have actually been provided and recorded. And so the condominium replat of Exhibit B needs to be revised to reflect those as they've already been provided, so LIBOR page, et cetera. On the pedestrian pathway easement, that has not been provided yet because it's in the third phase. And all we're asking for the applicant to do is to provide a draft document for administrative review prior to it going to council, just so that we've got eyes on it and we know that it meets the final plan as well as the condominium plan. We're not saying that it has to be recorded before it's put in or anything like that. Excuse me, there's one other thing. Okay, well, I'll just keep going. The master deed amendment, the legal description does have a small discrepancy. There should be a 37.61 feet, which matches the description on the Exhibit B, and it says 37.51 feet. They can fix that on the master deed. As far as the total units, you can ignore that. That actually, when I reviewed the master deed, I was actually reviewing the wrong one. I reviewed the initial one that they had provided. They had provided a revised one that already had that corrected, so just ignore that. Something else I was supposed to mention. And I
Was it regarding the, from the public? Caring about the
So-
pedestrian.
Yeah, we'll go to
Okay.
that. So the pedestrian easement, that was a recognizable and material benefit of the PUD that the developer provided. It's a 10-foot wide easement that runs the entire, along the entire length of the western property line from Grand Street to the area that would be the park. The developer will construct an 8-foot wide asphalt pathway. Excuse me. And he'll do that as he's building out phase 3. Excuse me, I'm so sorry. I think that addresses the questions that Karen, or the question that Karen asked.
Yeah.
Are there any other questions? Because I'm trying to remember this other thing I was supposed to bring up.
So, okay,
Go ahead.
yes.
How many units are there? Are there, because your statement there made me think maybe, how many units are there? Let's just start.
So 76 units were approved. One person bought 2 units and they've been combined. But there are 70, so there are 75 units that will be constructed.
So on their number 3 there, so we can take off and correctly identify the number of units.
Correct. You
Yeah,
can take
Okay,
out
I
that.
just want to make sure that that was. what
Yep.
we're from. Okay.
Okay, would you like to add anything?
Good evening, Allison Bishop with AR Brower, MMD Equities, the developer of Grandview Commons. Development is going very well. We can't build them fast enough, so there are people who are really interested in moving to Dexter and into Grandview. We are really ready to get moving on phase 3, so we would like to request that the planning commission approve the item this evening so that we can quickly get council's approval, because if any of you are all aware, and development and in government and everything is going very slowly now, and plans take about 4 to 6 weeks to get through Washtenaw County Building Department. So we're frantically trying to be prepared for spring construction. One of the other things that I wanted to mention is, as was previously discussed, in the development agreement that was approved for Grandview Commons included the requirement that we include that pathway and construct that pathway. the easement and the pathway. We're really not in a position, well, we are in a position, but it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to draft an easement right now and to spend $1,000 doing so when things may change with where that connection is made in the future. We understand and are obligated to providing that pathway and that easement. So to have that hold up this proceeding to village council is problematic for us. So we're hoping that you'll consider not making that a condition of moving the approval forward. So that's really, I guess, all I have, unless there's any questions for me.
Any questions right now? Don't see
I
any
remembered the other.
right now, but okay, thank you. We may
Yep, no
come
problem.
back up for questions. Yes, Michelle?
So as the third phase develops, and the easement gets constructed, or the pathway gets constructed, it is right at the property line. Excuse me, one condition of approval that I think needs to be added would be a construction grading easement that is required of the developer with the adjacent property owner. And the reason that I'm bringing this up is, as we have seen homes built where they're close to other homes, specifically we have this in Westford. The trespass that happens, not because somebody's being malicious, but you can only move within 5 feet. There's only so much room within 5 feet that you can move. This is going to be right on the line, and I think it will make it a lot easier on staff. It'll make it a lot easier on the developer. It'll make it a lot easier on the adjacent property owner if we have these documents in place, so that everybody knows what structure that we're working within, or what they're working within. That mitigation will be taken care of at the end, all of that kind of stuff. Without it, property owners are uncomfortable. The adjacent property owners are. I deal with complaints and questions on a regular basis, and I think you can all understand that. It's a risk to that person, and it just makes them uncomfortable. So I'm asking for that, and I think the developer would understand that as well.
Well, adjacent property on the same ratio.
I know. I know.
Which was not the intent to come into the meeting at all.
Yeah, really well.
Okay, so that's good
So
feedback.
that would be the
Okay.
additional
That would be-
condition of
okay.
approval that I would ask
All
for.
right. Okay, so I guess with that, we have any other questions for Michelle, or especially there is our suggested motion. Again, one of the conditions in here is the requirement of the pedestrian pathway easement, which I know petitioners indicated they would provide later, but is that a requirement? I guess I'm a little confused on that aspect, because if it's a requirement, I guess if you could address it.
Yeah.
Well, if we know where it's going, what's the problem with doing it now?
I think that because we're just not sure where the connection to the Mill Creek Park is gonna be, we don't, so I think the problem for us is we're not ready to do that because we're not ready to build it, and if things change, so we're gonna go invest $1,000, and I know it's only $1,000, but 1,000 here, 1,000 there. We're investing in preparing this easement that might be worthless in 6 months. We're not gonna be building this pathway for probably at least 12. I mean, or probably more.
Okay, yes.
Why don't we know where it's gonna go?
I think we don't know the 0.75, the 0.1, the whatever, the northeast, the exact
So
meets
you're
and
saying you don't know the
bounds.
exact
We
dimensions?
don't know the exact meets and bounds of that
But-
path unless we put it exactly at the outside 10 feet, and that's just, I guess that's what it is. I just think it's not an appropriate time for us to want to be doing that when we have no intention of constructing it for quite some time. It's a requirement of approval. We have to do it. We're going to do it. We intend to do it. I'm not sure the urgency of doing that actual piece of administration at this point is really a necessity.
So is it something that you can hang on a CFO, Michelle?
CBO would be, depends on, you do it at the first building or the last.
Well, no, it would be well before that. I mean, once we have everything, once we start construction in each of those buildings, we're gonna have it all laid out and figure all that out. So, I mean, we have to do it.
So is it just that,
We don't want to spend money and time drafting an easement that's likely going to possibly change. And I'm not sure the sense of why there's such a sense of urgency of having that done and making that a condition of approval to proceed this to council.
so it's the fact of getting it before it goes to council? If it's a condition of approval that it's provided with the preliminary zoning compliance of the first building that comes in, based on the way you just
I
extended?
mean, that's going to be hopefully the day after council approves it, so. I mean, I don't think that
Is that, yes,
Yeah, I don't understand why this is even, where we're even talking about this. This is a scheduling issue. They're going to do it. It's a requirement. Who cares when they do it? Why do we care? Planning commission doesn't care when they do it. If you do it, 2 years from now, who cares? It's gonna be before the site closes out on a project. When you do something that's a condition of your approval should be up to you. We don't tell you when you're gonna put the storm sewer in or when you're gonna when you're gonna sequence, when you're gonna put the garage slabs in. This doesn't even belong in here, in my opinion. So this is up to the developer to decide when they want to do something that they're going to do as a condition of the project. This is a construction sequence issue. It's none of our business.
I don't agree with that necessarily. It's construction sequences when you put the storm sewer in and when a path goes in, when a building goes in, and when you get a C of O. But the administrative tasks of having to receive a legal description and then go through an easement document, I get from your standpoint what you're saying, but on the municipality side, there has to be some point where it has to get done. Otherwise, the developer's looking for their final C of O and stuff isn't done. So for Michelle's sake, I understand why you want to tie it to something. The question is, what's reasonable to tie it to?
I don't agree. It's their obligation to do it. When they do it,
And the
it's
city
up to
has an
them.
obligation to say it needs to be done by such and such.
Not necessarily, because if they get it done and it's their time to get a C of O and the C of O is held up because they don't have this done,
And
that's
that's
their
how that
problem.
works. Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I need to move into my house and the city's holding it up because of the needs.
Well, that's
The
their
other
problem.
thing, in the PUD agreement, it
That's
does,
not managed by the city.
in the PUD agreement, it does talk about the easement being required in the third phase. We're coming into the third phase, so that's also part of,
okay,
I'm
that's-
following what's in the PUD agreement. I just did it with council. It could be done with first preliminary zoning compliance. It's
okay, so,
or final zoning compliance of the building.
so it could be done with the first one. Okay, so Jim, yes,
Is the third phase the final phase?
Yes,
Yes.
yes.
The third phase is the final phase, so it means essentially before they close the project out. So I'm with Tom. I mean, and I think that, sometimes we have to be realistic about this. Steve Brower is not gonna screw us. I mean, Steve wants to build more things in this town. I mean, I think that we should always pick what hill we want to die on, and we should always try to, I think, work with the developer when reasonable. And when we have the developer here, an expert saying, we're gonna do this, it's just better for us if we do it at this point. And we agree it has to be done in the third phase, but the third phase is the last phase, which to me means it has to be done before they close it out. I think that their request is reasonable, and I'm in favor of it. I guess I should say, I see the developer's perspective here, and it appeals to me. I think it's a reasonable
Allison?
request.
Was there an actual request to like, move it from this point to this point? Because I don't disagree.
Yeah, that's
that
fine.
It's reasonable to ask for that move from here to a point, but you have to pick a point.
no, it's the same position that it's been from the final site plan. It runs along the western boundary.
No, I meant the timing. Like, if they want to move it from the beginning, before it goes to council to a different point, that is reasonable to add,
Mhm.
to decide and say, yeah, that's totally fine, but I just think moving it from a point to a point so that everybody knows what the expectation is, that's reasonable.
Yes, that's, so I guess, do you have a point? Right, I kind of agree with what everybody said in a way, but I understand from a staff perspective, you need, like Allison just said, a point to tie it to. So will you have that, like, so if this is void, we go to the next, you know, the motion, or this is put forward without that requirement in there, there's still a way you can,
It'll be at the end of the project.
before final CO then.
So each building gets a C of O, each unit gets a C of O.
Yeah,
So if you say final C of O, are you talking the first final C of O that comes in or the very last C of O that comes in?
Yeah,
It's
so
not-
it doesn't-
it's not really C of O, it's the close out of the development agreement, or whatever happens at the end of the project when it's turned over to the final, whatever. There's a conclusion to the development.
I think that, I mean, I know that this is a requirement, we will do it, whether that is at the second building's preliminary zoning compliance or the third building's preliminary zoning compliance. I mean, I think the third building would be appropriate. Because I can't tell you, we're selecting buildings that we start on based on sales.
Okay, so if we're insisting
that's
that you make
Right.
define a point when you're ready to do it,
Mhm,
that everybody can understand,
mhm.
then you might think about what that point is.
So,
Was there 3 buildings in phase 5? Or I mean,
Phase
phase 3?
Mhm.
I think by the preliminary zoning compliance of the third building would be appropriate. Hopefully that's okay with Steve.
Or you can just put whatever, or
Yeah,
as approved
okay.
by Steve.
Perfect. Maybe not that go that far, but yes, Commissioner Wise.
Can you say that again, please? The third building?
The preliminary zoning compliance of the third building in phase 3. Because there's only 3 buildings and we're already in for preliminary zoning compliance for one. As soon as this is approved, that foundation is gonna be dug and poured in probably March.
And I get that, right, because you're not, I mean, it's probably gonna end up being before, because you just, by the time you're at that point, you want it done anyway. Like,
Exactly,
I know you're gonna do it.
we want to be out of this I mean, we want the project to be done,
Right.
finished, no more, you know, and things are moving really quickly.
Okay, so with that, we've had some discussion here, and we do have a sample motion on page 12 of our packet, so would somebody like to make a motion?
I just have one question.
Oh, sorry.
So sorry.
Additional bill?
So in that one with it's talking about the pedestrian pathway, how could we word that? So it would go with so pedestrian pathway easement shall be provided for administrative review. Can we say that preliminary compliance in phase 3 of third building?
So
How
you
would
would
I need to
just-
say that?
You would just say, after the comma, after review,
Yep,
with preliminary zoning compliance application of third building.
application.
Does that sound like you're working on a motion?
Yes,
Okay, we have a motion.
yes. All right, so based on the information provided by the applicant staff, the city attorney and OHM, and reflected in the minutes of the March 2nd, 2020.
No,
Oh,
today, January,
sorry.
January 4th, 2022.
Listen. January 4th, 2022, meeting, the planning commission recommends approval of the Fifth Amendment to the master deed Grandview Commons dated November 22nd, 2021, still good?
Yep, that's good. Those are good.
And replat number 5 to the subdivision plan. Exhibit B drawing to the master deed of Grandview Commons dated November 18th, 2021 to city council subject to the following conditions. Revised exhibit B drawing shall be provided that identify the liver and the page of the recorded sanitary sewer, water main and storm sewer easements. Pedestrian, number 2 is pedestrian pathway easement shall be provided for administrative review with preliminary compliance.
Preliminary zoning compliance.
Zoning compliance application, the third building in phase 3, if that makes sense. Revised Fifth Amendment to the master deed shall be provided to list 37.61 feet to match the correct description provided on the fifth replat of the exhibit B drawing.
And
And then staff review dated, number 4 will be staff review dated December 29, 2021, and number 5, OHM review dated December 29, 2021.
Okay, we have, motion wise, is there support?
So I need to put in the construction grading easement
Yes.
with adjacent
yes,
to the
thank you.
property owner.
Yes, site grading. Okay. Thank you. So there's a motion wise. You,
I didn't get that.
sorry.
Sorry,
So,
I found it.
Okay, construction procedures.
you good?
Yes.
Oh, good. Okay. So, motion wise, is there support?
Or
Support legally. Do you have additional discussion on this? Don't see any other than, I think, Michelle, is this in the revisions, I think, in our zoning revisions to take this kind of action away from the plan? Because I had
It'll become
mentioned
administrative.
previously that, right, and I think with Todd, a lot of this, it serves no one really a purpose for her to have to go to the planning commission and for us to really, when there's nothing that's changing on the property. So, yeah, I would agree that I think this is not necessarily, other than gives her something to do and Tuesday night, so. Yes, right, so, okay, I just wanted to add that, so, okay, with that, can we have a roll call vote, please?
Phillips.
Yes.
Party,
Yes.
Wise,
Yes.
Hill,
Yes.
Hubbard,
yes.
Heatley,
Yes.
Kowalski.
Yes. That's it, okay, all right,
Thank you very
it's
much.
approved, thank you. Okay, so moving right along to old business, from the new business, this is a zoning ordinance update from the subcommittee. So we all got, at least a number of us got a really hefty package, and I appreciate this, thank you, because it's much easier to read the one version and then the strikeout version, so thank you, even though we killed a lot of trees by then.
I know. It
It's-
was an
They'll go
expensive.
back.
They're broken.
Okay.
Okay, so Michelle, take it away.
Okay.
Thank you.
So, we did not have a quorum for the ZO update.
Okay.
So, but we did still go through, the questions that Megan had in the, as you saw on the agenda and in the packet. There are some questions that I will come back at your next meeting with. We're gonna revisit minimum lot width and lot area. I'll bring back some of the information that I presented to you before, so you've got visuals. There are some questions regarding requirements for porches, and how should they be encouraged versus should they be required? And there was one other thing, having to do with the subdivision control ordinance and street design. So these are questions that will come to you at your next meeting with the appropriate visuals. But also at your next meeting, we'll kick off basically your first review of the draft. Megan will be breaking her presentation up into sections, very discrete sections, starting with form-based code, then, transitioning into the other sections like signs, landscaping, and parking. She will also provide a breakdown by article and not necessarily by section, but by article to give you a sort of a down and dirty visualization, if you will, of these are the things that are coming out. These are the things that are being put in so that you don't feel blindsided the first time a review comes in front of you and it's like Michelle's citing section whatever, and you're like, I don't remember that. That's sort of the gist. But the object is, we know that there are going to be at least 2 meetings where the Planning Commission is going to review this document as part of their meeting. If we need to do it as part of a workshop, I'm thinking that maybe the March meeting would be that. not necessarily to February. We'll see. And the reason I say that is it's really going to depend on when CIP is ready to come in front of you. At this point, CIP is really fairly easy for you right now because of the way that we've been able to structure it. But that doesn't mean that I present it and you rubber stamp it. I expect that you guys are going to go through it. And to have two large documents to have to really have your eyes on and really pay attention to. I want to make sure you really have the time, and those two documents are competing with one another for your attention.
Okay, yeah, no, I appreciate that, and I think, I know, but I'd be interested in hearing from the commission, of course, that if, and you talked about it, taking it like little sections, and I think that that's extremely helpful, because with I know we want to kind of, we're on a fast track, but I don't want to fast track it too much, so, I mean, if we need a couple of meetings, I think, I don't know, again, I'm looking for, I don't think we want to rush it, because there's so much information, there's so many changes in here, that I think I'd rather take it a little bit like a meeting in pieces, if we can, structured, like you said, but maybe not try to cram it all in one long meeting.
No, absolutely.
Yeah,
not.
because then I think we, at least myself.
And if we have to add an extra meeting or so, if there isn't a ZBA meeting, we have a third Monday that, you know, we could meet if people are, if we need.
If possible. I mean, this is, because, I mean, I think we all know, but I mean, this is huge. I mean, there's a huge overhaul. Everything we do is based on this document, so.
And the new zoning ordinance map will be presented at your next
Yeah,
meeting.
and that's even, I mean, there's just a lot. Yes, Commissioner Hubbard?
Oh, I was just gonna add that, we talked about, I mean, we obviously talked about what Michelle was just saying, with trying to focus how we present this to you.
Yes.
For review, and one of the things we talked about was, how much stuff has just been moved. So as you're looking at the red line, just understand that if it's red, like, it doesn't mean that it's new. It may just have been somewhere else.
Well, in legal documents, when we move something in a red line, we actually use a different color.
And
Maybe
it
that-
does.
Oh, it
maybe
does,
that would
okay.
help.
Okay,
Yep.
yeah. I mean, that's the key. There's a lot of it, but that's why it's helpful to have a regular version, but yeah, no, that's great feedback, I think.
I, for one, can't wait to hear what Tom thinks of our new mandatory porches.
You knew what?
It's interesting you say that, because we talked about that, so Megan is gonna present requirements so changes in requirements will be emphasized, and then things that are just moving, like from one section to another, will not be a big topic, but the changes and requirements will be the main focus of the presentation.
Yeah,
So many of you will be so delighted in all the new requirements to the peasants.
Yes. Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. Yes.
So, two things. Tonight's not the night for comments that we might have already.
Yes, you
And-
can.
And two, I'm not gonna be here for the March meeting, and I definitely would like to be involved with all of these meetings in some fashion, and I take it that we cannot participate remotely anymore.
So as you can see, Kyle and Karen
Right.
are absent as planning commissioners, but they are attending via Zoom as members of the public. They can't participate in any vote. They can ask questions, and you can even have back and forth with them,
Okay.
but they're members of the public tonight. So in March, when you can't be here, if you want to participate via Zoom, you can as a member of the
Gotcha.
public.
All right.
You can talk under non-arranged citizen participation. And if the chair is amenable, he can open it up to members of the public to provide comments. But you won't be a planning commissioner at that point,
Gotcha.
okay?
Okay.
And yeah, thank you for pointing out, because yeah, we would like as much feed from all the commissioners that we can get. And I think with that though, also, if you could also submit them in writing to, because I think the public comment, I don't know if I want to open that up too much as an exchange, because then that can be a slippery slope as far as, we don't want to get into an exchange during public comment, because technically, like we said, at that point, you're not a voting member, so, but you can also actually speak those issues, but we probably wouldn't get a lot of feedback, I think, at that time. So, yeah, we definitely want to hear your comments, so please contribute as much as you can.
That's good.
Yes, well, did you?
Would it be, I mean, if Chet has comments, like Megan said to us, to submit things by the 18th,
Yes, if you've got any, if you've looked at it already and you've got any comments or questions that you want to share, please do so before the 18th of this month. Just email me and Megan.
So again, the notes that I've taken, questions I have,
Mhm.
email them to you.
Yes,
Okay.
Yep.
Now, one of them, or a series of them, has to do with an email that I sent to you
Mhm.
6 months ago. That
Right.
have not been incorporated at all.
okay.
And I'm just curious to know what.
We will go back through that then. Yep.
Yeah, please resend them if you need to.
Yeah, I will.
Yeah, definitely. So, again, so I think, yeah, so please, everybody I'm sorry, what was it, the date you said, Michelle, we wanted to get it to you by
18th.
15th? 18th. 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 Yeah. It's like you're anything, I don't know. Okay, all right, so by the 18th to Michelle, for a couple of comments, and would that include like, yeah, these would include any comments, so I'm thinking there's some things that
Anything and everything.
a commission, yeah, we want to discuss, it may be worth, yeah, it's something that will need additional planning commission discussion. So, and then we'll have our follow-up meetings to discern that, okay. All right, that sounds good. And that should be a little bit more structured, at least at that point, because we'll have a list of writing of everybody's questions, so please, again, you guys, do lots of fun time to enjoy this. Okay, any other questions, I guess, about the process or anything else with the zoning ordinance update? Everybody has what they need regarding that, whereas paper copy that needs it. Okay, great, and then, yeah, please feel free to reach out to Michelle with any questions in that meantime, and by the 18th, we need to make sure to get her some comment. I mean, it doesn't mean we can't comment after that, of course,
Absolutely,
but
absolutely.
I mean, to get the most valuable feedback, I mean, and to give staff time to prepare a response, that would probably be the best. All right. Seeing no other questions, comments, I guess we'll move right on to proposed business for next, wait, yeah, my schedule else for February. Of course, the zoning ordinance subcommittee meeting again, I guess.
Right, and it may be CIP as well.
I'm sorry, what was that?
CIP.
Oh, yes, that's right, the CIP. Any site plan, the rezoning you said is not the reason, but
Mill Creek,
Yes.
Mill Creek Brewery is probably gonna come in February for a March PC.
okay,
At least that's the last thing that I heard from them on that, so.
okay,
Um,
okay, all right. So great, all right, so with that rather, sorry, we're up to citizens wishing to address the commission. Any citizens online, Karen? All right, we got a big screen of Karen. You're on the big screen, Karen. So, any public comments, seeing?
Can't hear you, Karen, you're muted. You're muted.
Talking louder won't help. No wisdom. Happy New Year to everybody.
Happy New Year, Karen. Stay safe.
Kyle, any last thoughts?
Happy New Year.
I'm sorry?
Yeah, Happy New Year to everyone.
Thank you.
We're, sorry, Mr.
Okay, so with that, any other public wishing to
Yeah, I'll
address?
be back next month, and sounds like everything, sounds like you guys got it under control.
Yeah, so far so good.
Thanks, Kyle.
Thanks, Kyle. All right, okay, that's all the citizens I see, so, do we have a motion to adjourn? So move, Cardy, support wise, all in favor of adjournment, say aye. Aye, opposed, none, meeting is adjourned.
Oh my
Thank you
God,
all.
that's the fastest meeting.
Oh, last one.
No, last one was, you missed it. You missed it.
I will not be at next month's meeting, so I'll be drinking and skiing in Colorado.
Yeah, it's
And I
February.
promise you.
Not an acceptable excuse.
And I